Hey, so I just finished watching the movie The Rail, and it was really good, but really flawed. I think in order to explain my thoughts on this movie, I'll have to go into mild spoilers. Uh, Basically, I'll be going into things like kind of regarding the ending, but not bringing up like too specific of details that I think it would ruin the experience of if you were to watch this first before watching the movie. Just some things I think would be helpful to know going in. Uh, but I am gonna mention whether or not they reveal the identity of the killer and like my thoughts on the matter. So just know that if you don't want that spoiled for you, I do mention it. Uh, but what they do with it makes it so I don't really consider it a spoiler, even though others do when I mention how I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to try to talk about it with as little spoilers as possible, but I may need to spoil a couple of things to properly discuss the things I need to discuss. So, first off, the cast all did a pretty good job. I also have specific uh, things that I wanted to talk about that like I thought I got from the movie of like what was happening beneath the surface. But I'll save those for the end. No, maybe I should just no, I'll save it for the end. So first off, other than the four performances, I thought it was nice that we're stuck with like a limited cast of four people that kind of just create a sense of like relationship drama. Because, yeah, when you start the movie and there's no midnight label with the IFC midnight, and it's just IFC, it lets you know that this isn't going to be a straight up horror movie. It's going to mix genres, which is very interesting to do and helps it to feel more fresh and unique. Uh, but as the title suggests, not only are the characters renting a home, but the movie kind of feels like a sort of pulpy B movie, red box rental that's supposed to be like sort of shallow entertainment, and it definitely like is that. But it does do a couple of things to distinguish itself from the rest of the mediocre flock, but it doesn't really do enough to be better than that necessarily in a way that's like fantastic and absolutely recommendable. I still very much enjoyed it myself, but it's kind of a little more difficult to recommend because it does a lot of things that I thought were kind of generic, especially with the way they ended the movie, feeling like how every horror movie ends. Uh, what else can I go to into without spoilers? Uh, so when mixing the genres, I thought all of them were done pretty successfully for the most part. Some of the humor didn't land 100%, but I didn't really mind it because there's such a unique tone going on. Uh, Mostly I was disappointed with the movie things that it did not do, which is I think mostly limited to the fact that the movie is only a very brief 88 minutes long, and it definitely should have been longer because like it doesn't go into the thriller elements or the crime elements until 55 minutes into the movie. So that's 5/8 in before like we switch from like romantic dramedy to like something a little bit more tense. Um, but like it came up with some interesting plot lines for sure to ponder and to watch unfold, and they're very well acted. I liked the cinematography for the movie. It created like a very uneasy tone, and it was very nice to look at for sure. Uh, what else can I go into without spoiling anything? I think that Dave Franco's direction is pretty solid for the most part in the movie. I feel like with his second effort, it might be a little bit more focused, maybe a little better. This might be like his antiviral, where like he's just kind of getting his foot wet, and maybe his follow up will be way better than this. But it's a good start for sure. Uh, Yeah, the action, there wasn't a lot of action in the movie. It was definitely mostly towards the end of the movie because most of the movie was like, "Oh my gosh, relationship drama. Are you cheating on me? Am I cheating on you? Who's cheating on us? I think we're all cheating on each other with one another because we're all dating each other somehow." uh but yeah, there were definitely some interesting mysteries, but now if we're going into the minor spoilers, first I'll give my rating. It's a 7.75 out of 10. Uh, the reason why it doesn't quite elevate and why it kind of just it reminded me a lot of The Open House, which I know is one of the most downvoted movies of all time. But one of the reasons why it does that is because, and here come the mild spoilers, but the way it ends where the you never find out who the killer is. And while I do have a theory on that, which is that the guy that they saw while renting out the house, it was a little too red herring esque and obvious to have him be like obvious racist. So like, and most of the comments that he was making, like there it was more so like you could take it as racism and you could take it as just like, oh, he's just like he doesn't realize what he's saying is coming off as racist. Like it kind of felt like there's more than one way to take everything that he was saying, so maybe like the whole time they're accidentally like misinterpreting what he was like asking and he was just socially awkward. I thought that was going to be the comedic twist in the movie, but no. So because of the information he gave at the beginning of the movie, I believe that the killer is supposed to be his brother, the guy renting out the place. But I could be wrong on that because at the end of the movie they showed the guy like renting out different places. So I don't know. And we don't really know the killer's motive because, as I said, he just keeps. We never find out his identity. We know he keeps switching places and moving on to other families, which is the most tired trope ever, where it's like the movie goes on and he finds more victims after he killed the cast of the movie because there's another cast to move on to. Like, it was cool when Fun Games did it, but it feels like every single horror movie has to copy that now, it feels like, because it's like the horror continues. Isn't that terrifying? And it's like, that's not original, though. We've seen that so many times. Ugh. Uh, yeah, it was just the way it ended didn't really sit well with me. But I still enjoyed the movie nonetheless enough to recommend checking it out if you were interested in it. It's just not all of its plot links end in satisfying ways. The coolest part of the movie for sure is when it becomes a crime film at that 55-minute mark where they have to dispose of the killer's bodies that he uh creates during the movie. So like having these innocent people basically think that they're all murderers and like think that they're in a crime film instead of like a horror film is kind of funny. So like they're literally disposing of bodies for the bad guy, which is for the serial killer that's like plucking them off, which is really funny in concept and it's fun to see play out, especially seeing how like their plans go right and everything. And it did have like solid moments of tension. It just like didn't really know how to keep its characters alive through the moments of tension, which I guess is another complaint since it is kind of short that it did that where it like became a horror movie in like the last 30 minutes. And then I was like, okay, now it's just, let's just kill everyone. Sorry, I guess I went into more spoilers than I realized I was going to. It's just it's kind of vital to talk about all that. I guess I'll label this spoiler review, whatever. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. I found the cast like very charming. They helped the writing, which was very weak in my opinion. Like they overcame that. That was like a little bit harder to swallow. Like some of the lines of dialogue weren't as well written, but they delivered it with like finesse in a way that like sounded like a real human being would say that. Yeah. So yeah, I liked it. It was good movie.